the creation of Adam. It's a very, very famous painting, and I wanted to talk about, in my opinion, like my analysis of the art, um, why I think Gen Z really like it. Because if you've seen all over the internet or just in everyday life, people use iconography of the hands within the creation of Adam to symbolize a multitude of different things. So, context, the creation of Adam is also known as the creation of man because it's first in Italian, so it's translated differently, uh, by the famous painter Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel building. It was it was painted within the time of the 1508 to 1512, because that's when the Sistine Chapel was being painted. And what the painting depicts is God and Adam, who biblically is the first man. And in the painting, it's kind of it's in the name. It's his creation, and it's all these symbols of God and man and the relationship of the two. A lot of people have analysed this art, specifically the hands, and how Adam's hand isn't quite reaching God. You'll see the hands everywhere, in some tattoos of Memento Mori, which means in Latin, remember death. You have the hands being used as well, and it's kind of been removed from the painting. People use this as a symbol of creation now, of themselves, and I think this speaks to a wider philosophy that Gen Z has to identify with their own creation or their own birth. So, like, a lot of Gen Z see this painting as a symbol for themselves, because it kind of speaks to the philosophy of this era, I think, at least. I mean, you'll see a lot of people using Lucifer paintings as well, like Crying Lucifer or Lucifer Fallen, Fallen Lucifer, settings of Icarus, which are misidentified as Icarus because they're actually of Lucifer, but people don't really know that. And these biblical paintings being reimagined in a way that fits with Gen Z thought, I think is really interesting, because I think it speaks to something, and this is going to sound crazy, because how am I going to link Gen Z to Paradise Lost, and how am I going to link it to Frankenstein? Well, Paradise Lost is about Lucifer, and it's kind of about the first sin of man. It's talking about the original sin. It's kind of it's a response to the Bible, but from Lucifer's perspective, and he's speaking, and it's this long poem by John Milton. How this relates is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, famous Gothic novel. The character, the monster created by Victor Frankenstein, identifies with Lucifer within Paradise Lost. This is very interesting, as he is a misunderstood kind of monster, and he is this metaphor for alienated people, and him identifying with Lucifer is kind of him being opposed to God. But within the speech where he says this, he also talks about how he wishes he was Adam, which is, an interesting point, because he wants to be Adam, but he sees himself as Lucifer. And I think that's what Gen Z do as well. They over-identify with Adam, not really knowing about this painting specifically, or Michelangelo, the Sistine Chapels, or maybe they do. Maybe they are truly Christian and believe in this story and believe in their own creation. But the way that the painting's being used is kind of placing themselves as God, which I think is really interesting, because it speaks kind of to what Nietzsche says about the death of God within one of his parables, very famous, God is dead, we have killed him. And the replacement of God is the self. I think Gen Z have got this philosophy of self-creation, salvation through mutation. No, what was it? Mutation through salvation. Ah! Mutation is salvation. And there's this whole philosophy that Alan Watts says that if people can be God, then the illusion of life is that what if religious philosophy is more the self is God? I think maybe it's a bit of a stretch for me to bring Alan Watt into this because I'm talking about the creation of Adam and it has nothing to do with Alan Watt. He has some pretty good books though. I've only read one of them, but I've seen some interviews with him. Pretty cool religious philosopher guy. Anyway, back to Gen Z and back to the creation of Adam. So this over-identification with Adam is very interesting because actually biblically you'd okay, I sound like such a nerd, but the descendants in the Bible, or all of humans in Christianity, which is written in the Bible, are sons of Noah. So it's kind of interesting that this painting is called The Creation of Man as well as The Creation of Adam, and it's saying that man is Adam rather than Noah, which, is supposed to be of people, because this is a more famous story and this kind of speaks to how this painting is being watered down and is just kind of overused, not in a bad way. I think it's a beautiful painting, and Michelangelo, love some of his poetry. He has a very interesting way of depicting men and women because he just loves men. That's a whole different thing, Michelangelo. But this painting in specific has this whole idea that Gen Z believe they're creating themselves, believe that they are unique. The whole idea that there is something about our lives that we can create, that we hold on to. And by using the symbol of the hands rather than using God and Adam, the creation of Adam painting becomes less about God creating us, and instead it becomes creating yourself, or just creation in general. And it's the whole idea of a non-specific creation. It's not the hands of an artist, it's not the hands of God, it's not the hands of an architect. It's just a hand, any hand. And people have identified this to be their own hand. There's a lot of different ways you can look at this painting. You can look at it biblically, as in, Adam reaching out for God. He's just a fingertip away from God, God creating him, this whole power play between God and Adam, where you can see the levels of the painting, where God is slightly higher than Adam. God is a multitude of different things and not just one being. But specifically, Gen Z use the hand, and my sources, things I've seen on Pinterest. So, this is just me talking. Guys, I don't know what I'm talking about. I like this painting. I also like philosophy, and I also like art history and gay nerd stuff like that. So, what can I say? So, now I'm going to link The Creation of Adam, Gen Z, and the 1999 movie Fight Club. I think I talk about this movie too much because I like the book and I like looking at it philosophically. Okay, so the idea that every person is unique or created like Adam was created craftingly through God's hands, through some person's hands, through your own work, is an interesting idea that makes it seem like we are special, which I think, in the bleak sense of things, in this world where nothing really matters, going back to that Nietzsche, going back to absurdism, nihilism, more nihilism, leaning on nihilism right now, people are finding their own joy in creation and believing they're unique, which kind of makes people reliant on this idea of something that is holy or something that is divine creating them. Like, even if that is yourself, you're placing yourself in the place of God and creating yourself. What I think, how this links to Fight Club is because there's this whole opposition to God within the novel. God's forgotten children, the whole thing about not being unique, not being a special snowflake, is because we do not create ourselves. That's all. But Gen Z, I guess it's a kind of an absurdist philosophy. In using this painting, as a generation, I'm saying this as a Gen Z as well, we are identifying with it because it speaks to solving nihilism. If there is something about our life that we can control, if that is ourself, if there is some kind of act of creation or something that is divine within our lives, some kind of God within ourselves, even if you're atheist, that gives some kind of internal purpose. And it's kind of this new modern philosophy where yourself, your own ego, id, super ego, whatever, all of that is your own God. And your own philosophy guides your own life. And I think that's a good way to stop this video. That's the whole point of why I think Gen Z use this as a painting. There must be a multitude of other reasons why this has become really famous. Maybe it's just a really good painting. But I feel like it's specific, this painting from the 1500s that depicts a story from the book of Genesis is very interesting, that the hands became a modern symbol of self-philosophy. So I think that's interesting. Thoughts? I'm talking to myself, so I don't even know who I'm asking. Goodbye.